Hi there, my name's Bryn Llewellyn, and a question I used to ask myself as a teacher and a school leader was, why do we sit to learn? Is it because it's easier to control the children and to keep them on task, or is it because that's the way it's always been done? If you think about it, classrooms from Victorian times and now, they're not that fundamentally different. I mean, we've made huge progress with technology, but ultimately, classrooms then and now are still pretty much the same. Um, so, is there a different way to learn? Is there a better way to learn? Well, let's look at some ideas, some potential solutions, and the evidence. So, let's look possibly at move and learn solutions. By moving and learning, we're talking about physically active learning, blending movement with learning. And those of you who are a certain age might think that reminds me of an advert for train spotting, whereas others might be thinking, what's train spotting? Okay, well, train spotting was a book, a film about drug addiction, drug culture in Scotland. And you might be thinking, why is Bryn talking about drug addiction? Well, Professor Simon Shibley at Sheffield Hallam University said to me, Bryn, you need to think like a drug dealer. You need to think of something that's going to hook them in so that they keep on coming back for more and more and more. So, moving and learning appeals to all children, even the most reluctant of children. And it also brings on board, um, it reinvigorates uh, for many teachers the reason why we got into teaching in the first place. So, to me, moving and learning should be embedded. It should be interwoven into the culture and ethos of the school. And we're talking about moving and learning in the classroom, on the corridors, in the school hall, and beyond into the onto the playground and onto the sport field. Now we're talking about different approaches, and we're not talking about running around the classroom. I mean, that would be bonkers, dangerous as well. But we can actually move with purpose within the classroom. And I'm going to be talking about different resources that we can use as well as the different approaches. So just to set the scene, when I was a child up in South Shields, um, I wasn't exactly the best of learners. The highlight for going to school for me was playing around with my friends at playtime and playing football. And I think some of that was down to the fact that I was sat down all the time, sat down at a desk. Now, more recently, Dr. Tom Cornby at Leeds Beckett University did a piece of research, and he asked children from various schools across Yorkshire to draw what learning looks like. Now, as you can imagine, a lot of those images featured children sitting down at a desk, at a table, doing either reading or writing or mathematics, with the teacher at the front next to the whiteboard. Tom's team then started looking at the pictures closely, and the older children, quite a lot of them had images of clocks. And you've got to ask yourself, why does a child have a clock in their perception of learning? Is it because the teachers are moving children on quickly with pace and challenge? Or is it because they're looking at the clock and then looking at the window thinking, how long till break time? How long till lunchtime? How long till the end of the day? And I think some of it is down to the fact that for many schools, we've got a narrow curriculum featuring English and maths only, with subjects such as PE and sport and the arts put into a smaller box or even shunted to one side completely. And it's all about testing and accountability. We're driven by data. Well, when I say we, it's not schools per se, it's DFE, it's the Department for Education, it's Ofsted, it's ministers who are just obsessed with data. And studying to the test might work for some, but it certainly doesn't work for all. If you think about it, by nature, our bodies are designed to move, not to sit, sit, sit. And I think the image there can be exemplified by Michael Rosen in his poem, The Data Have Landed. First, they said they needed data about the children to find out what they're learning. Then they said they needed data about the children to make sure they are learning. And then the children only learned what could be turned into data. Then the children became data. So, going back to a newly qualified teacher in Keighley in West Yorkshire, we've got 3 mountains on our doorstep. We've got Ingleborough, Whernside, and Pen-y-Ghent. So week 1, with 8 and 9-year-olds, we would go up to the top of Ingleborough. Week 2, we'd reach the summit of Pen-y-Ghent. Week 3, we'd walk up to the top of Whernside. And week 4, with 8 and 9-year-olds, we would do all 3 mountains together with 25 miles or thereabouts in between. Now, can you imagine children doing that nowadays? We're talking about 8 and 9-year-olds. We are not as physically fit, not as physically active as we used to be back in the 80s. Globally, at least 50% of children are deemed insufficiently active. And in certain westernized countries, that figure is 80%. We're talking about 4 out of 5 children not getting enough exercise on a daily basis. And I think some of it could be down to nutrition, could be down to diet, could be down to school issues. But if you look at the data, we're physically active up until the age of 7. So foundation stage, early years foundation stage and key stage 1 were fine, but age 7 something happens. One teacher in Bradford said to me she thought it was down to phonics screening and key stage 1 SATs. But I would say this is when the digital device addiction kicks in. This is when the screen time starts to increase. Now, physical inactivity has been proven to be linked to heart disease and cancer and stroke and type 2 diabetes. Physical inactivity is also linked to stress and depression and anxiety. So if physical inactivity are linked to these things, what about the flip? What about the inverse? What about physical activity? What are the benefits? Well, the health benefits are well known, they're well documented, whether or not it's better weight management, better bone definition, better muscle growth, better sleep patterns. But now the researchers are showing that if you're physically active, you're more able to retain and absorb information, which leads to a better performance in testing. So really, it's a win-win situation for not just the children, not just for the teachers, the school leaders, but Ofsted and DFE as well. Now, physically active learning is not sport and it's not PE. Sport and PE are 2 distinctly different things. And in the past, money has been pumped into PE and sport, but I reckon that hasn't been as successful as it could have been. I reckon it hits the children who are already sporty in mind and sporty in nature. But maybe physically active learning will address all children rather than just some children. So here's one resource, Tagtivate. Tagtivate, what is it? Well, to me, it's TIG or tag rugby meeting Scrabble and maths. So the children run around, they move around, they collect the tags. The tags are like the Lego building blocks. And it works and it plays with kindergarten and early years foundation stage. It works with older children in primary settings. And we've even found that it works with older people too, as proven in a trial with adults with early onset dementia. By getting people off their backsides, out of the chairs, off their sofas, something magical happens. Yet there's neuroscience involved, but to me it's magic. And physically active learning works and plays with mathematics. It works and it plays with English. It even works and plays with languages other than English, whether or not it's Spanish or German or Swedish or Finnish. And it also works and plays with other subjects. Science, geography, history. If children are able to collect and communicate and create, they can share their knowledge with each other in these different subject areas. So we've got lots of smiles, we've got lots of anecdotes, we've got lots of observations. A great quote from a child. I used to think I was rubbish at maths, but now I know I'm not. we're talking about transforming attitudes to learning, not just of the children, but of the teachers too. Co-delivering a physically active learning session, the teacher turned to me and said, "I never knew he could do that." Pushed further, he explained that the kid had never put his hand up in the maths class, or he'd never written it in his maths book, but by taking the learning beyond the classroom, he demonstrated that he understood that particular maths concept. So the smiles are great, the anecdotes are great, the observations are great, but we need hard data to prove impact. So the first round of research proved that if you're taking part in a physically active session, yes, there's more time getting moderate to vigorous physical activity levels recorded, and it decreases the sitting down time, the sedentary time. We knew that. But when we started looking at the data when it came to the maths, there was an improvement in academic performance in the children who took part in the physically active session compared to the seated classroom. Now we're talking minimal gains, but if you think about Dave Brailsford and his minimal gains being repeated over time, minimal gains repeated over time become substantial gains. And then when they drill down into the results of the maths in terms of the fluency and the accuracy, it was the children who were deemed less able that were the beneficiaries of the physically active learning approach. It starts to close the gap. And not only that, those children who took part in the physically active session were in a better frame of mind for subsequent learning in subsequent lessons. So Dr. Andy Daly-Smith and myself shared our talk via a TEDx talk. And yes, we paid homage to Sir Ken Robinson, amongst others. So if you want to check out that video, please do. We can share the video at the end of the session. And it's not just our research. It's not just research in Leeds, in Yorkshire. It's global research. And again, contact us and we can share this global research with you as well. So how do we get the people to be inspired? How do we reassure them? How do we enable teachers to take the learning beyond the classroom walls? Well, check out the book Dirty Teaching by Juliet Robertson on Crown House Publishing, or check out podcasts by Ryan Ellis and the PE Umbrella. And whether or not this is going to work, let's see. If we press the button, I'm keeping my fingers crossed.
If you are looking for a more fulfilling job, a more fulfilling profession, creating more motivated students, making sure your students are engaged and ready to learn, most likely going to lead to higher academic achievement, just a better quality of teaching and learning in both the teaching process and the learning process, give this a try. It is real, it works, it has research to support it, and you will just absolutely love it. Start small and take baby steps, but start and move forward.
So pretty wise words there from a guy called Mike Kazala, who's a move and learn practitioner in America. So if you want to collaborate, if you want to reach out, if you want to join the movement, as it were, please contact me at the email address there. We have a landing page, a beta website for Move and Learn. We're also on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. Or if you want to give me a shout on that number there in the United Kingdom, please do so. So thank you very much to the team at Relearn for giving me the opportunity to talk about moving and learning. Any questions, please just ask. As I say, enjoy the rest of the festival, enjoy the rest of the event, and take care.